Have you ever stopped to think about what really goes into a language test? You know, it's so much more than just a list of questions. It's about building an entire experience that's fair, that's accurate, and that really shows what a person can do. So today, we're going to peek behind the curtain and see how these speaking tests are designed, from the first sketch to the final product.
I mean, just think about that for a second. A real conversation, it's messy, it's alive, it's spontaneous. So how on earth do you take something so dynamic and boil it down to a score that actually means something? That's the million-dollar question for test designers. And the answer starts with one single fundamental tool.
And here it is, the speaking task. This is the specific thing they ask you to do. Maybe it's giving a short presentation, having a debate, or doing a role play. It's the stage they set to see your language skills in action. It's a carefully built scenario designed to make your speaking ability something they can actually see and, well, measure. But of course, you can't just throw any old task out there. A really good speaking test is built on a solid foundation, kind of like a blueprint for a house. It has these core principles that make sure the whole thing is strong and stable. Let's take a look at the four big ones.
First up, and honestly the most important, is validity. It boils down to a pretty simple question. Does this test actually measure real-world speaking? For example, a test that just asks you to recite a list of verbs isn't a valid test of your ability to negotiate a contract. It has to measure the right thing.
Next, we've got reliability. Okay, imagine you take a test on Monday and get one score, then take the exact same test on Tuesday and get a totally different score. That's a huge problem, right? That test is unreliable. Reliability just means the results are consistent. They shouldn't be random or depend on who's grading you or if you got lucky with the topic.
Then there's authenticity. This one's all about keeping it real. A good speaking task should feel like a genuine conversation, not some weird artificial classroom exercise. The more authentic it is, the better it predicts how you'll actually use the language out in the world.
And finally, you have to be realistic. There's practicality. You could design the most perfect, valid, and authentic test in the world, but if it takes 5 hours and a team of 10 experts to grade just one person, well, it's just not going to happen. It has to work in the real world, with real budgets and real schedules. So, with those four principles in mind, designers can open up their toolkit. And it's not like there's one magic task that does everything. Nope, they have a whole range of tools. And the real skill is picking the right one for the job.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it's all about trade-offs. Take a monologic task, right? Something like a presentation. It's fantastic for seeing how well someone can organize their thoughts and just talk, but it tells you basically nothing about how they interact with other people. A role play, on the other hand, is great for that social stuff, but some people might just be uncomfortable with the acting part of it, which could affect their score.
And the toolkit is deep. Designers can use classic interviews, or they can put people in pairs or groups to see how they collaborate. There are even these cool integrated tasks where you might have to, say, read an article or listen to a short lecture and then speak about it, which is super authentic for a university or work setting. All right, so you've picked your tool, you've designed this brilliant task, the blueprint looks solid. But this is where the story takes a turn, because what looks good on paper, well, it doesn't always work out in reality. And that leads us to probably the most important quality control step of all. This is that quality check. Before a test ever gets used to make a big decision about someone's life, it has to go through this super rigorous inspection. The goal is to find any hidden problems and fix them before it's too late.
This whole process is called task review. It's a formal, systematic breakdown to make sure the task does exactly what it's supposed to do. You know, without this step, the scores you get are kind of meaningless. This is what makes the whole thing defensible.
So what are the reviewers looking for? One of the absolute biggest things is hidden bias. A task might look totally neutral, but it could have something in it that gives one group of people an unfair advantage.
This is the question they are constantly asking themselves. Think about it. A group discussion about a very specific national holiday might be super easy for people from that country, but almost impossible for everyone else. The goal is to test their language, not their cultural background.
Another major thing they check for is clarity. This sounds so basic, but it's crucial. If the instructions are confusing or vague, people might do poorly just because they didn't get what you were asking them to do. Exactly. Any confusion in the instructions means you're not just measuring their speaking ability anymore. You're accidentally measuring their ability to decode your weird instructions, and that just muddies the waters and makes the score less accurate.
And this slide just nails it.
This is all about alignment. What you score has to match what the task asks for. If the task is a group discussion, you better be scoring things like how well they take turns, how they help each other understand, and how they work together, not just how good their individual grammar is. If those two things are out of sync, the whole test falls apart.
So you see, all of this, the creative design and the critical review, it all comes together in this cycle. It's a process that keeps polishing and refining the task until the score it gives you is one you can actually trust.
And this review thing, it's not a one-and-done deal. It's a cycle. They review the task before it's ever used. Then they pilot it with a small group of test takers to see how it works in practice. And they even review it after it's been officially used, looking at data and feedback to make it even better next time. It's a constant process of improvement.
So the payoff for all this work is huge. A good review process catches all the little things that can make a test unfair. It weeds out those biased topics we talked about. It catches tasks that might accidentally favor super confident, extroverted people. And most importantly, it makes sure what you're asking for lines up perfectly with what you're scoring.
And at the end of the day, this is really the big takeaway. Building a great speaking test isn't just about having a clever idea. It's this incredible balancing act between the creative spark of designing something new and the disciplined, critical eye of reviewing it from every possible angle. You absolutely need both.
So, the next time you find yourself in a speaking test, take a second to think about all the invisible work that went into that moment. See if you can spot the design principles, the type of task they chose, and all the layers of review that shaped the very questions you're being asked. Because that invisible blueprint, that's what makes the whole thing work.